It's early morning in Livingston, Texas. The kind of morning that feels completely ordinary. A thin layer of fog hangs low over the road, stretching between quiet homes and trees that have stood there for years. There's no traffic yet, no noise, just stillness. Somewhere along that road, an 11-year-old girl is walking alone. She's heading toward her school bus. It's a routine she has likely followed many times before. Familiar, safe, predictable. But on this morning, something is different. Because she never makes it to that bus, no one hears anything. No one sees anything unusual. No screams, no struggle. Just a moment that passes quietly, and then she's gone. And hours later, a question begins to spread through this small Texas town. How does a child disappear in broad daylight, without anyone noticing? Livingston is the kind of place where people feel comfortable letting their kids walk short distances. It's not a big city, it's not chaotic. It's the kind of town where routines create a sense of safety. And Audrii Cunningham was part of that routine. She was 11 years old, full of energy, curious. The kind of kid who asked questions about everything and found excitement in small things most people overlook. She loved animals, loved being outdoors. She had that natural sense of curiosity that comes with childhood, the kind that hasn't been shaped by fear yet. To the people who knew her, she wasn't just a name or a face. She was family. She was laughter in a quiet room. She was the kind of presence that made everyday life feel a little brighter. And nothing about her life suggested that it would suddenly become the center of a criminal investigation. The morning she disappeared didn't start with chaos. There were no arguments, no visible signs of danger, no warnings. It was just another day. She left home like she was supposed to. The plan was simple. Walk to the bus stop, get on the bus, go to school. That's it. But when the bus arrived, she wasn't there. At first, it didn't feel like an emergency. Kids miss buses sometimes. Maybe she was late. Maybe she turned back. But as time passed, small concerns began turning into something heavier. School confirmed she never arrived. Her family couldn't reach her. And slowly, that quiet uncertainty turned into panic. Because this wasn't like her. Audrii didn't just disappear. Something had interrupted that routine. And whatever it was, it happened fast. Law enforcement responded quickly. Officers began by retracing her steps, the exact route she would have taken from home to the bus stop. Every detail mattered. Every second mattered. Search teams spread out across the area. Neighbors were questioned. Vehicles were noted. Anyone who might have seen something, even something small, was asked to come forward. But almost immediately, investigators ran into a problem. There was nothing obvious to follow. No signs of a struggle. No scattered belongings. No clear direction. Just a gap. A moment where something happened, but left almost no trace. And that kind of silence can be more unsettling than evidence, because it suggests control. It suggests intention. As the search expanded, the community became involved. Volunteers walked through fields and wooded areas. People shared her photo online. Flyers appeared across Livingston. Everyone hoped someone, somewhere, had seen something. But as hours turned into days, hope began to shift. Because statistically, the first 48 hours are critical in cases like this. And time was slipping. Investigators began looking closer at the people around her. Not out of suspicion at first, but because in many cases involving children, the answers aren't far away. They're close. Sometimes closer than anyone expects. Attention slowly turned toward someone connected to her daily life. Someone who knew routines. Someone who had access. That detail changed everything. Because now, the case wasn't just about a missing child. It was about understanding behavior. Investigators began analyzing patterns, movements, decisions. Because when physical evidence is limited, behavior becomes the evidence. Why that morning? Why that location? Why that exact window of time? Each question created more pressure. And with every passing hour, the situation became more urgent. Search teams expanded further. 9 units were brought in. Drones scanned large areas from above. Waterways were checked. Remote areas were explored. But still, nothing. And that absence started to feel intentional. Then something shifted. A detail, a piece of evidence, something small, but enough to redirect the entire investigation. And suddenly, everything changed. This was no longer just a missing persons case. Now, investigators were working under a different assumption. Something had happened to her, and someone knew exactly what. Search teams refocused their efforts. Specific locations were re-examined. Movements were reconstructed more carefully. Timelines were tightened. And what they were about to find would end any remaining hope. Days after she disappeared, authorities made a discovery. Audrii Cunningham was found. The moment that confirmation came in, everything changed. For the investigators, for the community, but most importantly, for her family. Because hope, the thing they had been holding on to, disappeared instantly, and what replaced it wasn't just grief. It was questions. What happened? How did it happen? Could it have been prevented? Investigators continued building the case. Evidence was analyzed. Statements were reviewed. Timelines were confirmed again and again. And slowly, a picture began to form. But like many cases, not everything fit perfectly. There were still gaps. Still moments that didn't fully make sense. Still questions that didn't have clear answers. And those unanswered questions can be the hardest part, because they don't allow closure. They don't allow understanding. They just stay there, lingering. For her family, life didn't return to normal. Because there is no normal after something like this. There are only memories. Moments that replay over and over again. Things that were said. Things that weren't. And a future that suddenly looks completely different. The town of Livingston changed too. Not visibly, but emotionally. Because something like this doesn't just disappear. It stays. In the streets. In the routines. In the places that once felt safe. Parents became more cautious. Routines were questioned. Things people once trusted no longer felt certain. Because the reality is difficult to accept. Danger doesn't always look obvious. It doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it comes quietly. Sometimes it blends into normal life. And maybe that's what makes this case so unsettling. Not just what happened, but how easily it could happen again. Because there was no dramatic warning. No clear signal. Just a normal morning that turned into something irreversible. And in the end, what remains isn't just a story. It's a reminder. A reminder of how fragile routines really are. How quickly safety can become uncertainty. And how sometimes the most dangerous moments are the ones that feel completely ordinary. Because Audrii Cunningham didn't disappear in the middle of chaos. She disappeared in the middle of normal life. And that's what makes this case so difficult to forget.